ladies and gentlemen. Munciana Courtside, show number 1, season number 5. It's hard to believe we've been doing it for 5 seasons. It's hard to believe at some point during this thing we'll be celebrating Randy Gardner becoming married. Married man. A lot of things change in 5 years, big fella. Yeah. Without further ado, let's get it going. Randall Lee Gardner and Mike Lingenfelter. Get us going, Biggs.
All right. A couple years ago, we'd always start with the opening day. Bad news is opening day, they moved it up from the Monday to Saturday. So we were in attendance on Saturday for the opening day. We went and watched Center Grove take on Newcastle at Newcastle.
Center Grove, nice little team. Not the same as usual. Usually they're big and physical across the board. They still have some really quality pieces. M.J. Hamill, one of the best setters in the state of Indiana, one of the best setters in the country for that matter, anchors that team. They come out and beat a somewhat depleted Newcastle team, missing a couple of kids that had some issues with rules this summer, and so they had to miss a couple of games, and that's unfortunate, but it doesn't take anything away from a Center Grove victory in 4 at Newcastle. You know, the guys that needed to be there, Shaftmaster, Melanie and Mabry, were still there. Zoe Conway, Caitlin Shumison, so it wasn't like this. This was a team that they went in and beat a JV team. No, that was a great victory. New coach, Center Grove, a great job by Dew, and that's a great kickoff to the season. You know, Newcastle was almost bearable temperature-wise, and that's a hot start to a great season. I think this year is going to be a phenomenal year in high school volleyball.
I agree. And we're talking about today's kind of the season preview. We're going to hit on a few things. We're going to talk a little bit about the success factor. We're going to talk about games of the week. We're going to talk about 5 top events to watch. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about some players to know, and we'll kind of get into that and get into what our maybe predictions of the state championship could possibly be. So talking about the success factor, we talked about the second year. So next year there will be a new cycle. And we got a few teams that have the chance of moving up. You know, LCC and Hauser made the finals last year.
I think LCC definitely moves up. I think LCC has been probably the most dominant of the 1A teams in the last couple of years. And, good news for them that they're going to be moving up. And that's, I tell you what, man, that's good news for everybody else in 1A too. But that LCC team returning pretty much the whole team from last year. Yeah. They're going to be tough to hold out of the 1A. I got to think they definitely move up. Yeah.
And then Hauser, I mean, they did have a lot of seniors last year. Yeah. But you never know. He does a really good job down there. Jeff, and I think he could possibly find a way to get him back there.
Always in the hunt. Yeah. Always in the hunt. And, I love that team. At the end of the season last year, we had a great conversation with those guys. Almost ended up going down to a diner in Hauser. Made front page news there, but I'd love to see Hauser back in it. But I right now I can tell you I think LCC is definitely going to move up in success factor.
Yeah. Another one to talk about was the 2A. We talked about Andrean moving up possibly from 2A to 3A. They return, I think, 4 or 5 starters. They have a ton coming back, and they had a great run last year.
And they're insanely athletic. At the state championships, they were one of the big surprises to me. I was a little shocked at how physical they were, and I think Andrean is playing their last season in 2A for a while, and I think they're going to be moving up with the big boys.
Yeah, and then on the South version, I mean, a lot of those teams were loaded with seniors, and they all had close matches, so anybody could possibly make a run. Yeah. And then if you make it to a regional in the first year, you make it to state finals and win it, you're moving up anyway.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah.
3A, we talked about Newcastle Brebeuf last year in the state finals. Newcastle was out of their mind in that game.
Yeah, Brebeuf is, if you talk to Brian Murray, he would tell you that last year he thought they were a year away from being where he wanted them, and he kind of had a master plan. I spoke to him several years ago, and this is exactly what he saw come to fruition. I think that I wouldn't be shocked to see Newcastle and Brebeuf both move up to 4A next year, and that's will make the 4A world just an absolute war zone. But that's kind of what the IHSAA wanted when this thing went into play, was to get all those guys up there. And man, it's this. I was really skeptical when this thing went into play, but I don't think anybody even talks about it anymore. And it's made it so a lot of other people are capable of really having fruitful seasons and ending seasons with championships. It's spread the wealth, and all in all, I think it was a home run by the IHSAA.
And like you talked about, what's going to be amazing is 4A is going to be just shy of a mid-major at that point with all those teams.
No. You look at some of those teams that have been dominant over the last couple of years in 4A.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, one of the most dominant 4A teams is Yorktown, which is actually a 3A team.
Providence.
Providence. Providence and Yorktown. I could talk about moving those guys into 5A or putting them in the MAC. I'm not really sure, but those two programs have, they've maintained dominance all the way through, whether they were 2As and 3As and all the way up through 4A. So 4A would be a war zone. It's going to be a war zone this year, but I think when when those two teams move up, which I think they will, I think that it's going to be even more so.
All right. We talked about Lazy Boy games of the week. We're going to hit on a lot of great matches this week. Monday nights used to be the opening night. HSC Carmel. It's at Carmel. Should be a great game. You got Westfield and Yorktown. That should be a great game. Westfield looks a lot better this year. Really great ball control, but they are playing just shy of the Big Ten in the backcourt at Yorktown.
I think it is the Big Ten in the backcourt, but we'll get to that in a minute.
And then we're going to pick our game for this day, and it's Zionsville and McCutcheon.
Well, like you alluded to when we were talking before putting together the show, Zionsville McCutcheon is a sectional showdown. That McCutcheon team is loaded.
Yep.
It's going back to the old days. Lonnie Worthington and the gang. I mean,
you got Brown and Humphreys.
Yeah, this McCutcheon team may be as strong as they've had since, I don't know, maybe the mid to late '80s. I mean, when they were really a powerhouse. It's a super strong team. They've got kids on that team that are going to Lipscomb, which is constantly in the NCAA tournament. And you got a kid going to Michigan and the Brown kid. I mean, they're going to be good.
Yep.
They're going to be really, really good. That's going to be a battle. That's the highlight match. I think that's the match we predict.
Yep. And for my thoughts, Zionsville is going to be down a little bit. I mean, you lose Isaac Barker and all those guys.
Oh. Yeah.
It's life after the stud team. But I think McCutcheon. I really like McCutcheon. I think they could be that team that gets out of maybe that sectional, come down the road. I pick them out winning the Monday night evening.
I do too, and I pick them to win that in 3. But I think that it's going to be really interesting to see what Zionsville does because, as you alluded, I mean, you lost an awful lot. I mean, Rich Coleman's group lost, you could argue, as much as anybody in the state or more. Them and Avon both lost an awful lot of talent. But this Zionsville team is going to have to rebuild a little bit. It's going to be interesting to see what Rich Coleman does to make that happen. So this first week, that first night of the season really is going to be an opportunity for us to see where they exist. Because last year they were kind of the Cinderella team.
They had the target on their
butt. Yeah, they were really good.
All right, Tuesday night. Last year, if you remember, it was Delta at Wapahoney, but it was at Ball State. This year, it's going to be at Delta. And then another game on Tuesday night. Fort Wayne Dwenger is going to head to Belmont, which is always a great match to watch up in the Fort Wayne area.
Oh, yeah.
And then the last game of that evening, Center Grove heads to Avon.
Oh, Wapahoney Delta. Wapahoney lost an awful lot of talent. Delta right now playing without, you could say their stud, Molly Hunt. Dwenger and Belmont, anytime you get Craig Kroll involved in it, it's entertaining. And those two Fort Wayne teams, those are kind of the cream of the crop. And then a couple of other solid teams. Fort Wayne is on the rise in regards to volleyball. Center Grove Avon, feature game. Like I said, I watched that Center Grove team, and it didn't have that same look as some of those Deb McClurg run teams of the past where they're just big and physical and dominated the net. But they've got an insanely good backcourt. I really was impressed with their ball control. Defensively, I thought that from the libero on down to all the DSs, I thought that they really they dictated the flow of the game with Newcastle with their back row. Even though MJ Hamill is an artist, I thought that was the key to that match, was the ball control of the Center Grove team. Avon still, everybody talk, new coach, and Goings is gone as a setter, and Jail Johnson, they lost more than what most schools ever have.
Yep.
But I will tell you, don't sleep on Eastridge. She's a dominant right side player. They've still got great ball control kids there. Asia Goins being one.
They've got a couple left sides that are sophomores that are really
They're really going to be good.
Yep.
You know, that game's at Avon.
Yep.
I like Avon. I like Avon in a very good match. At least 4. I wouldn't be surprised to see 5, but I like Avon in a win over a strong Center Grove team.
Yep. And like you talked about, Center Grove's ball control did shock me a little bit.
They're good. They're really
but Avon, I think, is going to be very close to them with Asia and some of those kids in the backcourt they had last year.
Mm-hmm.
But I think too much Eastridge, so I would say Avon 4.
Yeah, Avon definitely wins the net game, and that would be an interesting game to watch. It's a good Tuesday night.
Yep. Wednesday night, we have a good one coming up. It's Floyd Central New Albany, a great one always in the South. We'll be a little bit different this year with our man with the flip-flops.
No John Breeding. No John Breeding. The Mad Flipper is retired, and you know what a legacy he leaves behind at New Albany, and just a great coaching career. There's been so many great coaches in this state, and John Breeding would definitely be amongst those guys when you talk about the best. And then Bart Powell still grinding kicking after all these years. That's always a neat matchup in the South, and you know both kind of rebuilding. It should be an interesting match.
The marquee match we'd probably say that night is going to be HSC at Newcastle.
Yeah, I saw both of these teams this summer in camp, and you know Jason Young has got a neat little group. He's got some solid kids, and in every position they're deep.
Yeah,
they're deep. I mean, they're 3, 4, 5 deep in the middle. They've got 2 really gifted setters, several pin kids. Maybe his best back row he's ever had there. And I know that's stepping up and saying a lot, but I believe it's his best ball control unit. Newcastle, still, you know, they're going to still suffer the pains of missing a couple of real quality kids. You know, their primary ball control kid is out, and arguably their M1 or their top middle is out for this match, and they'll be out for 5 or 6, 7 matches, and so this will mark number 3, I think, in that list. Those guys won't be back until just before the Avon invite, and so my prognosis may be different at that point. Wow, and that's a tough one to call. That's a tough one to call. I'm going to go HSE in the 5 just because of ball control over Newcastle in that one. That match will tremendously change by the end of the season because of those kids being back in full. But don't discount the Shaftmaster Index. Those 2 cats, if they get it going in the right direction, those 2 are a 2-man wrecking crew. And Melanie Shaftmaster may be the hardest matchup in the state of Indiana. So I wouldn't be surprised it goes either way. Just for prediction's sake, I'll go HSE in 5 in a war.
Yep. That one, like I said, you just wonder what's going to happen. The Shaftmaster going to go off and so on. I'm actually going to go the polar opposite. I'm going to go Newcastle in 5, just because you never know. You never know. I could see either one winning that match. I don't think either is going to be a blowout. It's going to be a great game.
No, we can play rock, paper, scissors on that. All right.
Saturday, I got a lot going on Saturday. First of all, they got Carmel
It's amazing
invites.
how many good games there are.
There's
so much good volleyball in this state. I hope people realize that. We're blessed.
Yep.
We are truly blessed.
Carmel invite, what sucks a little bit on Max Preps is not everybody gets their stuff on there yet, but they do have the Carmel invite. I know some of the top teams, Crown Point, Providence, Carmel, and Valpo are always there.
Well, and we
should be another great one.
And it's one of the only times that we see Crown Point and Valpo, the powers of the North, kind of venture down this way. It's one of the few opportunities we get to see them. Crown Point is kind of a mystery. You got a lot of people, one big piece in Chacon to replace, but always good and as well coached as anybody in the state. Valpo, same story. I think that you're going to see Penn start to do things up north, but I think those 2 are always on the radar, and that's a great opening weekend. Don't know much about Carmel. I know that they closed the season strong last year. It could be interesting. Providence is always in the hunt. I will never, ever, ever say that they're out of anything.
Then Saturday, you got a couple great matches. Saturday night is the Delta at Newcastle match, which is always going to be a good one. It's always a good Saturday night match.
That's another one where you feel a little
You
bit
wish it was
cheated.
a little later.
Yeah, you feel a little bit cheated because there's an awful lot of primetime players not involved in that. I already made reference to Hunt being out for a little bit because of a foot injury, and the two young ladies that are out for Newcastle. That's still going to be a great match because there's, that's local rivalry and frenemies are involved in that. But that should be a good one. I just hate the fact that it's early and there's people missing.
Yeah. Another matchup we talked is Avon at Yorktown.
Wow, that's awful early for that to start happening.
Yeah.
Man.
I mean, that could be your state final.
It could be.
Because you're looking at Avon or Providence being probably the favorite in the set.
Well, I can tell you that Avon, it's going to be a matter of who steps up. Who steps up and takes the place of some of those guys. They lost some really, really gifted. When you lose a couple of kids to Power 5 conferences, Purdue and LSU, that is significant. But they're still going to be good, and they're still going to be one of the top teams in the state of Indiana. Yorktown, I'm going to go back to what I've said for the last 5 years. It is not about what they do. It is about what they don't do. They will march into the building with about 10 kids that are 5'7" and under, and they will flat wear you out with ball control and discipline and attention to detail. With that said, I think that Yorktown will be at full power on that night, and barring any unforeseen accidents or incidents, I like Yorktown in 3 in that match. And not to tip my hand, but I'm telling you, I've watched a lot of Yorktown volleyball over the last 15 to 20 years, and this team impresses me as much or more than any of them.
I'd like to say I would like to go a little different, but watching Yorktown a little bit this summer and the praises you've given them and the crew they've got coming in, I'm with you. I think it's a 3-0. I think it's Yorktown Saturday evening.
I would be shocked if it's anything other than 3-0.
Yeah. All right, top 5 events to watch. We kind of talked about for the rest of the season. We always talked about Blues Day coming up. It's Tuesday. Some people have moved out of that Tuesday slot. We used to have Center Grove.
Probably giving it too much
and
attention.
all those other people, but a lot of people have entered that. I like down south, Columbus East Seymour is always going to be a good matchup down
Columbus
there.
East is a much improved team.
Yeah.
Stacey Bernard isn't playing.
Yeah. And then you got Delta at Yorktown. That's always a good one. They've moved it up a lot this season.
Yeah, still no Hunt for Delta, but those two teams.
That's usually a late season match.
They're no strangers in that rivalry. Those guys get after each other.
Yeah. Then you got Chittard and Fisher. Chittard's got a nice little
Chittard's
libero.
good.
She's going to be going to Dayton.
Chittard's
Fisher's
good.
is loaded.
Yeah, Chittard is really good. Winch, the pro at Chittard, is very solid. Fisher's, man, I tell you what,
Duffy.
they may have be the best set team with 2 setters. Because the Hayworth kid can set, and Rose Duffy, we're going to talk about in a little bit, is real deal. But that team is loaded. That's going to be a great matchup.
Yep. Fort Wayne Leo, Fort Wayne Dwayne.
Oh, great matchup. I'm telling you, Fort Wayne is, there's some good things happening there. Strange things that are brewing up in Fort Wayne. And the Summit City is doing some nice things.
Yep. Center Grove at Cathedral.
That's a legendary rival. There's no McClurg and there's no Kesterson, but it's still, when you leave a shadow like those two did, that means that the legacy is going to remain forever. Both those teams are a little down from where they were in the heyday, but that doesn't mean that takes anything away from that matchup. Cathedral, this is going to be the best coached non-Kesterson team. I think that Dee Gallagher's got a pretty good group, and they're young, and I think they're going to be much improved over last year. And we've referenced Center Grove, so that should be a great matchup early in the season.
Yeah. Then Brownsburg Plainfield's always a good one.
Brownsburg is, like I said, they're Death Taxes in Brownsburg winning 20 games. Those guys are always good, and Plainfield is they're right in the heart of Circle City area, and so they're always going to have solid teams. And so that's a great day of volleyball, and that's the 23rd of August.
Yep.
That's early.
A couple days after that, busiest day of volleyball, 137 matches on Max Preps. A ton. You got the Wapani invite. You got Hoosier North-South Challenge. You're asking who that is? It's a 3-way match. It's Providence, HSC, Lawrence North. They'll play each other and move each other up. You got Ben Davis invite. Burris is kind of the chosen one out of that group, but it is much improved. The River City invites, the New Albany, everybody down there in that neck of the woods.
We could make reference. I said the best non-Kesterson coached Cathedral team. This Burris team may be the best they've been since Steve Shondell Tanga Harnish that first year. It's just, they're on the upswing. So that Ben Davis invites.
He had one kid move out of the district, but I would tay you this:
much improved.
They would have all 6 starters back if she was there.
Yes.
And then you got the Vincennes invite, which is kind of cool. They've kind of added Valpo and some of those teams up in that area. It also has some teams out of Illinois, up in that Chicago area. So that'll be a pretty cool tournament out there.
That'll be a great tournament.
Noblesville heads to Newcastle. Then you got Bloomington South invite. That's got Bloomington North, Bloomington South, all of those guys. And then the last match I had down was Mercy at Center Grove.
All on the same day.
All on the same day.
Wow. Anytime Mercy comes into Indiana, it's impactful and interesting. That's a beautiful day of volleyball.
Yep. 9-1, Avon Invite Classic. 9-1, also my big day.
That's the day Randy gets married. Avon Classic takes a backseat to the Gardner wedding, but maybe we'll get some good footage for the show that day. But that Avon Classic is one of the great tournaments in high school volleyball, much less not just Indiana. I remember when we kind of dreamed this up a million years ago, I thought it was going to be special, but this has evolved into something that's been spectacular. Last year you had Assumption, the best team out of the state of Kentucky, you had the best team out of the state of Tennessee, you had
best of Indiana.
Yeah, the best of Indiana. I mean, that's just an absolute home run of an event. That's a can't miss event, folks. You get a chance, you can see a lot of really good volleyball on that day.
Yep. 9-6 is another one at the Mud Sock rivalry. Well, the reason why I say that is last year I told Rose Duffy and Jason to come out and watch the game after last year's off season, and I got there last year after the second set. HSC was up 2-0, and Jason will never let me live it down. Fishers came back and won in 5.
Yeah, and that turned out well for him at the end of the year. HSE ends up beating Fishers in 5 at the end. That's just a war.
Yeah.
And I tell you, both those teams are very improved. I think both those teams bring back a strong nucleus. The only question I have is I have no clue what mud sock means. I remember as a boy getting in trouble for that, but I'll go with that. I like the mud sock rivalry. I'm just anxious to see what the trophy looks like.
The last one is Cathedral Invite, 922. It's got, you never know exactly what they're going to add. Every year they add some people. Grand Catholic was in there a couple of years ago. Cathedral, Avon, Newcastle, Center Grove, New Albany, Carmel is all in there. Yeah. No, we'll find out more as the season comes.
I'd like to see him rename that to the Kesterson Invite. I'm a big fan of Gene and what she's done for volleyball, but Gene will probably be around. Brad White and the food truck will probably not be there. That was always a big plus for that event. That's historically, that's a a Hall of Fame event. That's a great event. I really wish they would move to making that a little bit of a shrine to Gene, because it's always had some of the best teams in the state.
No doubt. Talk about Raymond James. That's one thing you kind of wanted to hit on this year, and I think it's awesome. Names to know. Yeah,
well, and Raymond James is a broker firm, and so they need to know an awful lot, and they need to know what names are hot and what names are trending up. From a financial standpoint, we're going to each week pick 5 kids. There's no rhyme or reason. There's no ranking. I don't get into the ranking kids thing, but we're going to hit you with 5 names that you may or may not know. This state, like I said, we're blessed because of the number of quality kids that are in this state. When you put together that initial list, I was blown away. Yeah. I mean, there's some just home run kids. Well, the first one that I'm going to throw out is a kid that's, I think, one of the best leaders that I've ever witnessed. Just a great leader. And will be leading Fishers this year is Rose Duffy, senior, heading to Western Michigan, where she's going to make an insane impact. She's got to be on. She's on that list. Yeah. She would be a kid that I hope that people get out and watch her play, because this is the last chance you're going to get. Gabriella McHugh, and senior at Angola, you put down some of the numbers there. I mean, this kid's a spectacular setter as well. Yeah. Heading to North Carolina, a Power 5 kid. One that most don't know, that I agree that
Will
you
make
put
an
on there.
impact.
She will. She will. Her biggest impact may be a year from now. But Ellie Stinson,
Yeah.
little sophomore out of Yorktown, going to Northwestern. I think her best years of volleyball are coming. You know, she just happens to be on a team right now where the starting libero is going to Ohio State. The L1, who is going to be a libero, is going to Nebraska. And so all she is another Big Ten kid in that team, and she's the third passer out of that group. And Ellie Stinson is going to be something special before it's all said and done. Brooklyn Phillips, I agree 100% with your call on Brooklyn Phillips going to Lipscomb, and Brandon Rosenthal, one of the great coaches in college volleyball. Lipscomb volleyball is off the charts. I mean, they're one of those mid-majors that scares the heck out of people every year.
Damn Western Kentucky.
Yes, and Brooklyn Phillips, you know, one of the best setters in the state coming out of Franklin. Once again, a senior. You know, folks, get out and watch this kid. I mean, she can play. And then the last one, you got time to wait. She's out for about a month, but is West Virginia commit Molly Hunt from Delta High School. Big, physical, rangy kid, got a better platform than most people realize. Got a huge upside. She's just been beat up, and she's just coming out of surgery. But I think she's another one to watch, you know. And so those will be our 5 this week. But I want you to keep an eye on Rose Duffy, Gabriella McHugh, Ellie Stinson, Brooklyn Phillips, Molly Hunt. Look these kids up and go out and follow these kids, because these kids are all D1 commits, and these are the first 5, and we're going to hit you every week with kids to watch. And I think you're going to be blown away by how much good volleyball is in the state and how many just spectacular young ladies there are in all corners of this state. Yeah. Those are the Raymond James names to know for this week. I can't wait to hit you with next week's 5.
Yep. All right, a little crystal ball action here. Talk about the state finals. We'll get to the Gatorade Player of the Year after we get later in the season. All those kids you're talking about.
Oh, yeah. Every kid we name has a shot for the next 6 weeks.
Yep. State final predictions, we'll kind of hit on 1A. I thought, looking at it, and I'll kind of give my thoughts a little bit, LCC, just because we talked about those unbelievable loaded. The South could be interesting. You know, Bar Reeves down in that area. They're probably the favorite to come out of there.
The South is wide open in almost all of those divisions, 1 through 4A. I would never sleep on Hauser. I'm okay with Bar Reef as a prediction. I agree with you on that. I believe that LCC is
the real.
I'm not going to say a lock. There's no such thing as a lock, but they're kind of the Harlem Globetrotters in 1A right now. They're doing an awful lot of winning. Yeah. And they look really good, and they got everybody back. Yeah. So we spoke with them earlier, and great coaching, great returning play, and really maybe the most improved area of the state. You know, when back in the days where Lafayette Jeff was dominant and doing wonderful things, Lafayette was really, really strong. This LCC team is literally bringing Lafayette back into the limelight, and I like that team. Great call by you. I agree with your predictions.
2A, what are your thoughts?
I love Andrian, just because they're physical. They shocked me. I was absolutely blown away watching those kids come out in 2A. You know, a bunch of kids I hadn't seen, a bunch of kids that were just dynamic and looked like multi-sport athletes, kind of old school volleyball. I really, really like that team. I like Andrian coming out of the north.
Yep.
Who do you like out of the South?
South, you know, it's like you talked about. It could be anybody. 10 loves the bigs middle with Jones and some other kids like that. But my thing is, I like Hagerstown. They've been close. They've just fallen short a little bit each time. You know, last year they fell a little short. But I think this year they return almost all their offense. They got to find a setter. They looked like they had a decent setter. I watched them a little bit at Summer Heat. They got Reagan Tinkle. They got Jeff Swim. Both can be good terminal kids.
And they're terminal kids in the middle of the court, which is kind of hard to find in 2A.
Yep.
I
think they're moving Swim to the left side this year.
Yeah, I like that team, though.
Yeah.
I like Hagerstown. I like Brian Dale, and the upsurge of that program is phenomenal. You're talking about a program that is probably 5 years removed from losing 25 matches. You know, and now all of a sudden they're a team we talk about on an annual basis. They're having a shot to win it all. And
they're the progression of Munciana Courtside.
Yes, I would like to see them ultimately play a tougher schedule. I know this year's already set because you're going to get it's kind of inflated numbers, but Andrian and Hagerstown in the state championship, I can see that.
Yeah. 3A.
I like Newcastle in the north.
Yeah.
I think when they get everybody there, Melanie Schaffmaster is a nightmare matchup. You know, a 6'3", 6'4" setter that can beat you by throwing it, can beat you by setting it, and can beat you at the net just physically, a beast. Mabry Schaffmaster, loaded arm, and is a kid that's destined for a Power 5 conference scholarship. Bailey Cox has been offered all over the place. We'll probably play left side for that group for a while because, you know, for ball handling reasons. Zoe Conway is a kid that's is going to be a pro. It's going to get a D1 scholarship. All the way through. Caitlin Shunnison is an addition. It's going to be really, really good. Nicole Wilkerson could be a kid. They've got a middle there. I don't know. Those guys.
Dark horse.
Yeah, this kid may be the most surprising young player in this area, and maybe in the state of Indiana.
She's got some flashes.
Yeah, this kid shows some moments of brilliance in the middle of the court for Newcastle that no one has seen. And I think that you may want to do your homework because this kid won't be on our names to know this year, but maybe at the end of the year when we talk about names to look for, I think this kid will be on that list. And I think that Newcastle team is, in my mind, is a 3A. They got to go through a tough section with Burris and Wapahani, Delta, but I like Newcastle.
And then the other half, I would say a rematch. Little Floyd Mayweather and Pacquiao fight again here. Brian Murray, I think he brings his crew back in there. I think they, like you said, had this year kind of on the radar as in making a run. Yeah. And I think they got too much maybe in that South, but the South is questionable. You know, somebody else could make a run there. We had the run by Chittard a few years ago.
Yeah, I like Rebuff. Well coached. Both those teams are well coached. Both those teams have stars. I like that. I like that matchup.
4A.
Yorktown. Yorktown in the north. I know that gets old because everybody looks and thinks of it's a homer. And Yorktown hasn't been great. I've been the first to admit it. I coached against them for years. I've had to look and try to really scrutinize Yorktown. I can tell you that as good a coaching staff as there is in the country. Both the teams you listed here, I'm a big fan of both of those coaches and coaching staffs. The Yorktown team has ball control that's beyond reason at the high school level. And, this game is about first ball contacts. This game comes down to serve, pass, and defend. And this Yorktown team has some middles that when they do defend can be in transition. Just enough size and just enough speed to hurt in the middle of the court. They are very significant on the pins. I will tell you, Watkins, Searing, and Knuckles are as consistent and steady, and Sebring may be the most improved outside hitter in the state of Indiana. You combine that with a very consistent setting with Vincent, and I will tell you, I will take Stinson, Knuckles, and Murr. And Murr may be the most underrated player in the U.S. I'm telling you right now, this kid is a kid that when I look at who's going to be an Olympian, and down the line, this kid has the motor to be as good as she wants to be. And Murr, Knuckles, and Stinson may be the best 3 ball handlers in the country on any high school team. And so once again, it's about what they don't do. This team will not give you points. If you're going to beat them, and they can be beat, please don't get me wrong, but if you're going to beat them, you're going to have to beat them. They're not going to beat themselves on any given night.
Yep.
Now you're going to tell me who can beat them?
I would tell you out of the South, the 2 teams that would stick out to me would be Avon and Providence. But, I look at Providence, they return their starting setter, which is a stud. Bivens. They have a great right side. And then they also got...
what about the 7th generation of Hornings?
Yes. And everything you've heard over the last couple of years, she's the best.
I saw her. She came here once and played in the Power League, and I think she was about 3 years old. And they had to pick her up for a union team in a MEPL match, and the kid was just a stud. Yeah. She was actually an 8th grader, I believe, but 3 years old. Made it sound good. And Terry Perico, who's a gifted coach, got her daughter playing for her.
Yeah.
That's always
In the right
interesting.
side.
Yeah, good luck with that, Terry. Yeah, man, I made a mess of that, but good luck to you.
Yeah,
And
and
you'll
I
do
think
better
that'll be a
than I
great
did.
state finals. I mean, it's a 3A state final now,
Okay.
a 4A state
All
final.
right, all right, I'll give you that. I like that. I like that.
All right, we'll talk about the preseason Munciana Courtside. We kind of base this off of what is going to happen down the road, not the kids that are out from injuries and things going on, just for what's going to happen down the road.
This is always a mess, and it's always a shot in the dark. But
yeah,
the two honorable mentions are wild cards into my top 10. Burris, if they can get a couple things figured out, is much improved. And Burris is like last chance you. I mean, these guys have about 5 or 6 new faces that transferred into the academy and everything else. They could be good. They could be good. And Mike Dotterell is a very gifted coach, and I like their chances of having a breakout season. And it sounds weird to say breakout season and rebuilding at Burris, but after what Steve did there, Steve Shondell did for so many years. But I'm really, really excited about where they're at. And I like LCC as a potential. A 1A team getting in the top 10 is hard to do.
Yeah.
But I think if there's going to be one, it's going to be LCC.
I agree. All right, number 10.
Center Grove. You can't be that well set.
And not be in contention.
And I think that Chris will do a wonderful job there. I think it's a good matchup for him. I think that Center Grove group, they've got some young kids, in particular on the left pin that could grow.
Yeah.
But I tell you what I liked about that team was outstanding ball control and great defenders. I thought they played with great heart and great will, and you combine that with a setter that can get one-on-ones all day long. I like Center Grove.
Yep. All right, number 9.
Dwenger. Dwenger gave Newcastle all they wanted last year. And in our area of the world, and most people don't notice it. Fort Wayne and Lafayette go, kind of off the radar. But like I referenced earlier, I mean, I'm really impressed with what's going on in Fort Wayne. Not only the Tin Caps, which you gotta love what they're doing, but Fort Wayne Dwenger and some of the programs up there are really, really on the move. And Dwenger, I like.
I agree. The reason why I also say that is they were here for summer heat.
Mm-hmm.
We did the new system and everything, had a great turnout there. And they actually took over the number 1 seed heading into the tournament, took down Newcastle, that little 3-way with them and Burris. So they ended up pulling out first in that, and then ended up losing to HSC down the road.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
They're
going to be really, really good.
Yeah. Number 8?
Westfield. I just the McCaffrey kids is
done.
long and
Going to Morehead State.
yeah, and that's a great gift for Jamie Gordon of Morehead State. I really liked her. I saw her
think
this
she
summer.
could maybe be a setter at the next level. She was earlier in her career.
I'm not so sure
They're
she
beautiful.
shouldn't be.
They're
She's
beautiful.
got great hands and she's got a great athletic build. Kinsey Daphne, that team is really got some pieces. They're better in the backcourt than what people are going to give credit.
Isley, Mindler, all those
Yeah,
guys.
you got Mindler and Isley and amongst others.
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to be a really, really good team. First-year coach, so you got some great energy. I like Westfield. I like Westfield at 8.
And she was with Zionsville over the years. I mean, she's with Don Jones and those
She's
guys.
no stranger to winning.
No. All right, number 7.
Crown Point. One Chacon gone, one Chacon left. And I'm not betting against those cats. What happened last year was a tragedy in the state championships when Morgan went down. But I will tell you, this team still has plenty of firepower and is well coached as any. We're going to talk about coaching in a little bit in future shows. A little feature I'm going to bring out that Randy, kind of a wedding present for him, put him on the hot seat. But I think Crown Point's as well coached as anybody. We just don't get to see him enough being up north. But I like Crown Point at 7.
Yeah. All right, number 6.
HSE. I still think they're a year away, and I think that they're a well set team. They got their setter that's going to be on JV would start for some of these top 10 teams as a setter. I mean, they're deep. They're going to have to develop firepower, consistent firepower on the pins to be a top 5 team. Yeah. But I will tell you, it won't be from a lack of effort in the back row. The back row is dynamite. and they're go-getters. They are an extremely well-set team, and they've got big physical middles that can create problems at the net. I like HSE at 6.
Yep. All right, number 5.
This is going to tick off the HSE people. I like Fishers.
Yeah.
Fishers too has 2 setters, and 2 really, really gifted setters. I'm not a bandwagon guy. I've been a Rose Duffy guy for a long, long time. Hayworth, I think, is at the same moxie. They're physical. They got a couple kids in the middle of the court can cause troubles. They've got enough talent returning in the back row. I think that Fishers team is due for a breakout year. What'd you call it? The mud sock.
Mud sock.
Yeah, it's. I really want to have some say in how that trophy looks at the annual.
I think they have one. I don't know.
I'm sure they do. I'm sure that Josh Collins has got enough dirty socks to put into that whole mix. But I like Fishers at 5.
Yep. All right, number 4.
Eastridge.
Yeah.
I like Avon, even though there's a coaching change, and I don't think that Scott McQueen ever really got his due as a coach, respect-wise. I thought what he did was remarkable over the years, and he held everybody to a high standard. He did a tremendous job with that program. Handing over the reins, it won't be a big drop-off. I think that they did lose more than anybody, but Eastridge is such a major factor, much like Melanie Schaffmaster. When you put 6'3", 6'4" on the right side in a high school game that is dominated by left side attackers, those kids are shut down guys.
Yeah. The Ravenels of the world.
Yeah, those guys just shut you down, and Eastridge has shutdown capability. But I love watching that kid when she's in a rhythm and hot, because she's really unstoppable with that left hand flying out of there. And they're going to be good. And Asia Goins, and they've got ball handlers. They've got a couple of young pins on the left. I like Avon at 4.
Yep. All right, number 3.
Top 3 is interesting, and it's nothing new.
Yep.
Right now at 3, I like Newcastle. I think Newcastle, much like HSE, is a year away from being just lights out. I mean, off the charts. If this team can stay hungry, the other day I didn't see the sense of urgency in that team. And sometimes there's a complacency. I always look back at what Steve Shondell did, and I look at what Gene Kesterson did, and what Providence and Yorktown do on a year in, year out basis. I think it's amazing to keep kids that hungry.
It's impressive.
It is. It's really impressive to retool, restart, and re-energize every year. That Newcastle team seemed a little flat. I don't know if it's because of the guys that we're missing, but the guys that are there need to bring energy as well. It doesn't matter who's not at the party. It matters who is. That Newcastle team is going to have to fight a little bit of complacency. But I will tell you, I don't know by the end of the season with what they've got in the middle of the court, and my newcomer of the year candidate, which we'll talk about in a couple of weeks, in the middle of the court, along with the Shaft Masters and Cox and everything else they bring. That team has no reason not to be in the top 3, and they should be able to lay claim by 1 to be number 1 at the end of the season if they continue to progress. And they've just got to realize that what you did yesterday is really not important. It's the present that matters.
All right, number 2.
Providence. I love the Horning family. I wish they lived closer to Muncie. They're just a phenomenal group of players over the years. I've watched them. Bivens is yet another in a long line. We talk about these schools that develop great setters. We never really give Providence their due.
Yeah.
They've had nothing but great setters.
Best fans in the world, too.
Oh, by far the best fans in the world. But I will tell you, Terry Perica does an insane job with that group. And coaching her own child in this run in a very important role, I think is going to give her a little impetus to having an even more involvement, more buy-in, and no one buys in more than Terry Perica.
Yep.
But I like Providence too.
Number 1,
Yorktown. If you didn't pick that up early in the show, that's not a surprise by any stretch. That Yorktown team is. It's just once again, it's going to be the same thing. You got to keep them hungry. You got to keep them focused, and I will tell you that I think Steph Bloom does that as well as anybody. 3 kids on that team going to the Big Ten. You know, the Searing kid may be the greatest weapon in that group.
Yeah.
A much improved middle. Miller is one of the most underrated players in the state. You know, I just like that team for what they don't do, and they don't give you anything. And so at the start of the season, I'm going to go Yorktown. And, you know, now the weight's on my shoulders, and we'll see how that turns out.
Yeah. When this goes live, we'll find out everybody hits us in 6 hours.
Yeah, that's it. You know, things that look for next week, you know, new rankings, 5 new players. One of the things that I'm going to throw at my buddy here that he didn't know, over the next 4 weeks, starting next week, going all the way through his wedding, we're going to create our Mount Rushmores of Indiana high school volleyball coaches historically. I think one of the things that we don't do enough of, we keep you up to date on what is happening, and there's some great coaches that I want to make sure that we give due to those guys that have made this thing what it is. So next week, week 1 of Mount Rushmore, we'll each unveil our own personal. I'm not going to talk to him about it. I don't talk to him much anyhow during the week. I try to stay away from him. Our desks are about 8 feet away from one another, but we won't chat about this. And let's see what the old guy says, what the young bull says, and we'll go from there. So next week, week 1 of unveiling our Mount Rushmore of Indiana high school volleyball coaches. Until then, be good sports fans and enjoy what you got. We have a blessing here.